Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Breakthroughs with Bree. On this podcast, we are having breakthroughs about our spiritual and personal development journeys, all in pursuit of living our most joyful, abundant, and blissful lives. My name is Bree. I'm an Akashic Records channeler. I'm an energy healer. I'm a tarot reader, and I'm an astrologer. I use all of these modalities and one of my favorite things that I do, which is soul alignment and healing coaching. On this episode today, we are tackling one of the most prevalent topics that has come up in my channeled sessions and in my coaching sessions with people. When I'm doing Akashic Records channeling sessions, a lot of times what the Akashic Records Keepers and your spirit guides are showing me is like what's going on with you in the moment, but also like whatever you need to hear or whatever you need to see to sort of break through patterns or blocks that you're in so that you can become even more soul aligned than you already are, so that you can become more joyful than you already are, so you can become more confident than you already are, right? And when they show me and I get to share with you where there are patterns and beliefs that just are not aligned to the truth of your soul and therefore causing struggle or anguish in your life, almost always these are tied to struggles with self-worth. Literally 9 out of 10 times. This struggle is so common that it has been something that I've really been curious about and wanting to talk more about. In that curiosity, I've done a lot of learning and I specifically channeled through a whole group program that is going to be dedicated to going through the weeds and like truly transforming our self-worth struggles into like soul deep self-value and self-worth. Like it's a whole thing that has come to light. So for this episode, we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about why it's the root cause to so many things and how really looking straight on to your self-worth stuff is going to be the foundation that a healthy, happy life is built on, period. It's like that important, you know? And I'm also going to be talking about this group program which starts on Wednesday, November 15th, called Valuable and Abundant. And it's a program all about building that soul deep self-worth. I'm so excited if you can tell. So let's get into it. I cannot wait to get into this juicy, important, wonderful topic of self-worth. But I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys. I'm going to be talking a lot about this group program, and here's the reason why. One, as of yesterday, when you listen to this podcast on Sunday, November 5th, you will have, if you are subscribed to my email list, got the announcement that I am officially taking enrollments for this group coaching program. I'm not offering one-on-one coaching right now. Enrollment is not open. And I have limited spots to do single sessions with me. So if you've been wanting to work with me, this group program is the way to do it. It's officially open for enrollment by the time that you're listening to this episode, which is fabulous. Um, and there's a special deal that is going on with the program if you enroll today, on Monday, or Tuesday, which I will talk about at the end of the episode. Um, I think that this topic has the ability to change every single person on this planet's life. Like literally, it's that pervasive, it's that important, it's that like fundamental to our experience as a soul in a human body, right? I am so excited that I got the calling, that I got the vision, that I was able to channel through this program to be able to work like in the weeds with a group of people in this container on this topic and really help walk you through that transformation. I'm so excited to do that. Um, and really, that program is going to be like an extension of what I talk about in this episode. So in this episode, we're going to talk about like the overarching, like, why is it so important? Like, how and why does it impact so many areas of our lives? And like the basics of my take, my 2 cents, what I've channeled in about some of the most important parts of having a really stable and healthy sense of self-worth. But there's only so much I could talk about in a podcast. I still believe that what you're going to listen to in this podcast is going to be deeply beneficial. It's going to help you. It's going to be able to start triggering you to start working with these concepts yourself, right? Because you could do all this work on your own whenever you needed or wanted to. You're capable of that, right? This is a little bit of help if you want it. And that program is a whole nother level of help if it feels important to you to invest in this kind of thing for yourself. So you're going to hear me say, like, I will talk more about it in the program just because, like, that, like, there's so much more detail. There's so many more like practical processes and tips and resources that have been like strategically planned to help like build on each other to really help, anybody that participates like very deeply and comprehensively transform their concepts of self-worth. So I just want to be transparent about that right at the beginning. You're going to hear me talk about it left and right. I'm so excited about it. But I'm still also very excited to talk with you, my podcast fam, about it today. Okay, I feel like most of you have a concept of like what self-worth is, but just because we like starting off on the same page. When I'm talking about self-worth, I'm talking about the part of you that feels like you are worthy and deserving, period. I mean, you could insert anything at the end of that. Worthy and deserving of the things that you want, of being safe, of being seen, of being loved, like whatever it is, right? Feeling like you are inherently valuable or in what situations you're valuable, right? That's like the core of it, right? Other words and phrases associated with it are things like self-esteem or self-confidence, right? These are all concepts that to me, this is what I'm talking about when I say that like self-worth, right? It's everything that's in that field. The reason why self-worth is so important is because like the stability and quality of your self-worth will literally determine the stability and quality of every single area of your life, every single one. It will impact your physical health, the quality and stability of your physical health. It will impact the quality and stability of your emotional and spiritual health, mental health, whatever you want to put in that category. It will absolutely determine whatever you might call success or even fulfillment in your career or your level of prosperity in your life, which AKA is like the money, wealth that you have. You better believe self-worth is going to be determining the quality of your relationships with people, the kind of relationships you attract, the kind of relationships you experience, which of course we know are just reflections of our relationship with ourselves, right? And really, your overall feeling of deep contentment and fulfillment with your life is going to be determined on how good you are with your self-worth. It literally affects it, like webs out to all of them, like every single one. And if you're like, what do you mean the contentment and fulfillment of your life? Let me just explain that a little bit. Your ability to feel content and fulfilled, and what you would probably say is required to feel content or fulfilled, is for you to do something that's meaningful to you, right? Or for you to feel like some level of your needs or desires are meant to feel content. You are not going to be able to take authentic action aligned with your purpose if you do not have high feelings of self-worth. Like, why would you? Your dreams and the things that you feel like you're supposed to do don't matter when you don't matter, right? Or you can't ever get your needs or desires fulfilled. You ever can't ever get them met if you don't think that your needs or desires matter. You're never going to be able to have good health if you don't feel like your health matters, or if you're not able to address fears, limiting beliefs, or dysfunctional patterns that are preventing you from treating yourself and your body like it's valuable, like it's important, acting in interest of yourself and your health, right? You're likely going to be in patterns of codependency with people. If your self-worth was built on shaky ground. And I just want to take a minute right now to say that struggling with self-worth is not a character defect. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Our beliefs about self-worth is one of those things that was developed in that like 0 to 7 age range, right? We absorbed it We learned it from our environment, either through what was explicitly and directly stated to us, or we implicitly absorbed or indirectly learned about the world around us, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in this episode, but will be more in the Valuable and Abundant program. Um, but anyway, self-worth. The way that self-worth issues can manifest is also in codependency, right? Codependency manifests oftentimes as prioritizing other people's experiences or external things over your internal experiences and yourself. This need, this like compulsion to have to be attached to another person, another thing, and its experience in order to feel okay. Right? So we can think about that with relationships. I know a lot of people who will be really interested in this topic and interested in the program, and for good reason, are people who are really struggling to attract and find their like divine life partner and romantic relationships that feel healthy and like they're the quality that they want, right? The self-worth and codependency stuff comes up a lot because there can be a feeling of desperation for a need of that kind of relationship, right? Our sense of what, and this is different for everybody, but usually is in the ballpark of feeling like we're lovable or that we're valuable or that we're desirable or that we're attractive or that just all plain like together that we are worthy at all, that we're valuable at all. Like we can't generate that feeling for ourselves within ourselves. And the only way we can get that itch scratch, which is really a deep need for all of us humans, is via engaging in a relationship. Like that's the only proof that our mind knows how to come up with to like even put a couple drops of water in that self-worth bucket. And that self-worth bucket is a really important bucket to be full. Our brain is trying to help support us in getting that feeling wherever it can, and we just haven't learned healthy patterns and behaviors to fill that bucket, or our beliefs about that bucket in the first place is not setting us up for success, right? And insert some of those codependent things, right? It ends up with us staying in dynamics, friendships, romantic relationships that we know are not good for us. We know are not healthy. We know are not full of love and respect and maturity and the things that we want that keep us there much longer than we need to be, honestly, like draining away our time and energy, probably incurring trauma, you know, just because we feel fear about not being deserving. We feel fear about not being lovable. And again, the best strategy we have for getting that bucket, even a couple drops of water in that or getting that itch scratched is through relationships, even if they're really crappy ones, you know? Another way that that can manifest. Another way that self-worth can manifest, and I say this a lot, is people that identify with being like perfectionists. Hello, talking about myself 100%. Or feeling like you can like never do it enough, right? Or like you this pressure to like find the right thing to do, you know, which usually manifests in you feeling like you can never really stop. You always have to go. Like everything will fall apart if you don't stop, right? Or like intense guilt about resting or like prioritizing moments of joy or pleasure, right? Like usually those go hand in hand, even though not all the time will you see that those both of like equal intensity. But even the perfectionism thing is when you feel like you will only be good enough, you will only be safe if this external, yes, external metric of performance of success is met. So you like it's like or you're like a carrot. You're a rabbit running with a carrot in front of you that's always moving, right? And then we take on that role of setting these crazy expectations and for what? Because the only system that we're used to building any sorts of sense of accomplishment or worth or fulfillment from is this process of chasing a carrot. Like that's the only thing that feels safe to us, right? So you go, 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 like, am I enough? It's not enough. Is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Like in a constant state of stress and worry about this, trying to chase this feeling of being worthy. Woof. It's rough. Been there. Another place that self-worth can really manifest is in the overgivers and the underreceivers. This can share a lot of things with the ones that I talked about before. Of course, these can all overlap, but they might like their flavor of how they show up for you might be a little different, which is why I'm talking about all of these kind of in their own category. The overgiver and the underreceiver. Also one that I really identified with, right? Where you feel like you're constantly finding yourself in a position where you're like overexerting yourself. You're bending over backwards for people. You're considering all the things and taking all the contingencies and doing all the extra and all this. And it seems like the people that you're in relationship with or around or end up interacting with you like literally couldn't care less. They're happy to take. And what they're giving to you is like a little breadcrumb in comparison to how much you are exerting yourself to give to them. That can be with people, and that can also be in business. There's going to be a big group of people in this program that are creatives or entrepreneurs, or maybe even aspiring entrepreneurs, right? And this pattern of feeling like you are trying so hard in your creative endeavors and in your business to create and produce and try and like give people the best thing and make them it's something they want to buy or trying everything you can to like make it successful for them or like whatever ways you're overextending yourself and not getting the amount of clients that you want, not getting the amount of sales that you want, straight up not giving the level of money that you want in your business, right? Having a hard time receiving those things, whether it's you actually resisting accepting things when they come your way, or if it's you attracting the opportunities to receive in the first place, right? Which absolutely can be like an opportunities in business thing, um, or just straight up again, like the monetary exchange for stuff. And that principle again also relates to relationships as well. Like your ability to receive in relationships. Like there's a lot of funky things we do with our beliefs and our behavior patterns when we feel uncomfortable around the idea of equal exchange in relationships. A lot of people like don't even know what that looks like. They feel like they feel like, and I'm really speaking from experience too, that an equal exchange in relationship to them feels like them asking too much, but really it's equal because of that conditioning, you know, a conditioning around self-worth and what that kind of exchange for being loved and seen and accepted and all that kind of stuff looked like early on and like lacking the tools of how to really change that, you know? So that can show up a lot. Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say, which again is related to all of this, is feeling like in general, like you're just settling for things that are less than what you really want. Or you're even having a hard time connecting with yourself to determine what you want or claim what you want in the first place. That is also a self-worth thing, 100%. 100%. And you might be listening and thinking, Brie, are you saying all roads lead to self-worth stuff? Kind of. A lot of them and most of them do. A lot of them and most of them do. And here's the good news about that is that treating the root cause creates so much relief. It dissolves so much stuff for all of the things that it's connected to. It's like the domino that like when it falls, like all the different things that it's connected to falls to. You know what I mean? Like it's a very powerful thing to address because I guarantee you this is showing up in more than just one area of your life. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Here's the thing, too. I was in my doing research about this topic because, like I said, for months and months and months, this concept of self-worth has been very obviously the root for a lot of things that are causing people struggle and making it difficult for them to step into their like soul level authenticity and their bliss and their peace and their abundance and just all the things that we want for our life, right? I was really looking for myself, right? And for all of these beautiful, wonderful clients that I work with. Okay, so like what is out there to help them address this? If there is this many people who this is a core thing for them. And I'm just in one little corner of the world. If this is like 90, 95% of the thing of the sticking point for my clients, like imagine what that is at scale, you know? So I'm like, okay, like what is out there that can really help people look at their self-worth, not just from like a human 3D perspective, but like incorporating that spirit and soul perspective. And I'll tell you what, I did not find a lot. I don't want to say nothing's out there because of course how would I know that, right? Like I don't want to speak in absolutes. But like honestly didn't find a lot. I know that there's a lot of like sort of like self-love sort of things out there, which of course is connected to all of this. Um, but to me, self-love is like a little bit more of like an action and attitude towards yourself, whereas self-worth to me feels more like your foundational core beliefs and like fundamentals of what you believe you are and what you build yourself on, right? So just the energy of it felt a little bit different than like what self-love feels like to me. And a lot of what I saw too on the self-worth thing, like there's some, cognitive behavioral therapy kind of approaches and again, just kind of like human ways of approaching things, which of course can be so effective in a certain way, right? Like there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge to all of that. What did not feel like it was totally satisfying about a lot of the things that I saw is it felt like it was a lot of like think your way out of it kind of approaches. Like just say nice things about yourself or just, think about these things instead of these things or like just treat yourself better. you know? And I'm laughing because like of course we want to do that. Like if it was as easy for that for people, like nobody would struggle with self-worth. Just my 2 cents about it. And I want to be clear, I think that those practices have value. They have so much value, but they're like missing the like the meat, which is why I feel like people continue to struggle with self-worth stuff. I feel like a lot of what I see out there is that people kind of get to a point where they can start to be a little bit aware of some of their self-worth issues, but they don't ever really create meaningful change. Like they continue to be like, oh, well, I'm doing that thing again where I'm taking less than I know I deserve, but like, oh well, I'm getting a little better about it, or like sort of this like almost like surrender to it in like not a great way, like a defeat almost a little bit, you know? And I feel like that might even be in like a collective idea that it's not possible to really transform self-worth as a concept in general, like that it's not possible to really shift our self-worth to be something really positive and really quality on the whole, right? Or like the majority of it feeling good, like that there's this belief that sure you can be aware of it and you can improve it a little bit, but it's always going to be something you struggle with. Like, wrong. Don't love those kinds of stories. If you find yourself saying stuff like that, I would pause and listen back on any concept. Because I just don't believe that that's true. But what I do believe that that's a reflection of is that there's not a like really meaningful and effective strategy that we've been able to access as a collective about how to like deeply shift and create real change in our self-worth concepts. That's what all of that reflects to me. So all of that to say, I asked the guides and the Akashic Record Keepers, I said, we need answers. Please help us. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. So that's the question I've been asking because for months I've had this idea of like, this feels like something where there's a need for this, right? Like this, like not only could this just like change people's lives in the biggest way, but like the way that this would impact the collective for people to be able to go inside to the root of that. Oh, it just like it would literally change the world. It would change the world. You know how they say that saying like if you want to like improve the world, improve yourself or like some version of that, like oof, ooh, this concept. So all of that to say, we got some goods. There have been a lot of different pieces of this that have shown themselves to me over the last couple months that I've been able to put in practice myself, that I've been able to see coaching clients and people close to me put into practice, content I've been consuming, information I've directly channeled through, and like a combination of all of those things to create a 5-week program that's going to give you the goods. It's going to help you go really deeply to the root, alchemize, transform in a big way, give you like actual practical tools, practices that when you work them will actually create integration and change, like real change. And then there's also going to be a lot of content that's going to like be very paradigm shifting. It's going to completely shift the way that you think about worth and value. Truly. That's going to make it kind of impossible to look at yourself in the world differently, which is the best part of all of it. So I want to talk a little bit about what some of those are so that even if for some reason joining the group is not in the cards for you, that you still have something that you can ponder on and work with in the meantime before you come and work in the program with me, or before, maybe you buy the digital version that will probably be available after we do the live group, or maybe like a version of this program 2.0 or whatever. All right, so you're probably all listening like, Bree, we're pumped. You got us all riled up about it. Let's hear it. And I hope you're riled up because this is so big. So let's get into it. Okay, Valuable and Abundant. It's the name of the program. And I'm going to go over some of the key areas that I am addressing in this program because these to me feel like the key components to building a very stable, high quality, reliable sense of self-worth. Are we ready for them? Let's go. Okay, one of the first components, like qualities, capabilities that is required to have this really like soul deep, stable, high quality sense of self-worth is your ability to build internal security and safety. You've heard me talk about it a lot on my podcast. One of the biggest factors in this is nervous system regulation. When you start to research and understand the role that safety plays and how your body and your mind interacts with the world, it becomes increasingly obvious how vital it is for us as like an individual to be able to cultivate a sense of safety, like true safety in our own skin, no matter the circumstances. Because what happens is when we are able to do that, we're able to make choices based out of authenticity and not out of fear. Most people, especially those that we love them, but are still living in the dream and the illusion on autopilot in zombie mode, whatever you want to call it, right? Like they are making decisions on a very primal level based on fear and survivability, right? That's what those programs are made of, especially in that 0 to 7 range when we've never gone back and attended to them, right? And it makes it really hard to actually do things based on authenticity. The thing that's connected specifically to self-worth stuff is there can be a lot of discomfort that comes up, especially with the way that our beliefs as a culture are around self-worth. It can feel incredibly uncomfortable and frankly dangerous to start choosing yourself, to start choosing authenticity, and to start challenging old patterns and beliefs to build a new way to interact with yourself in the world. Though, like, you're never going to be able to do that meaningfully and effectively if you're not able to show your body that it is safe. If you are not able to create a sense of safety in your own body and mind. That is a necessary skill for any kind of change that you want to make, and especially stuff that has to do with self-worth. Because our subconscious mind, our mind in general, one of its jobs really is just to keep us safe. Like that's like one of the one of the things that just makes us human, right? Is this ego mind. Its primary concern is safety, surviving. Of course, we understand what that means like on a physical level. We don't want to get in front of a bus and like actually perish, or we don't want to starve, right? Like physically, we can understand that really well. Psychologically and emotionally, it's always trying to protect our self-concept. It's trying to protect us from things that threaten our self-concept, or based on what we've built our self-concept on, protect us from things that would tell us that then we are bad. Because when we believe that we're bad, that spiral goes down real fast, and that ultimately can become a threat to our lives if we got in a real dark place about it, right? So if there are things that trigger our sense of feeling unworthy, or that we're worthless, or that we're unlovable, or that we're not good, right? Like that would be like a real dark place to go and would absolutely threaten our survivability, right? So our brains, when we're just running on autopilot, when we're not revisiting these things, um, all of these patterns that we've come up with, right? All of these fears and doubts that come up, ultimately, they're a protective mechanism, protecting our self-concept, right? But when we can cultivate safety, when we can cultivate security, we can calm down and we actually have space to choose and to condition our own mind to say, you don't got to be in protection mode because we're not in danger. Right? Again, a lot more on that, a lot more on that in the program. But that is one of the key fundamentals and really shifting any sort of belief or pattern, but especially self-worth stuff. Another element that is involved in that is the fear alchemy process, which my personal process is very influenced by Ben, the fear guy. Um, on Instagram, I did his Fear Alchemy group program. There's a couple parts of the process that I take a slightly different approach because I really involve your higher self and your soul knowing in that process in a way that's a little bit different than his process, but it's very similar to that. And it's basically being able to relate to your fears, to meet your fears like head on, and actually be able to alchemize them, to dissolve them, to like meaningfully work past them, not just suppress them, not just act in spite of them, but almost kind of like reduce the charge on them, if not dissolve them completely. So there's a whole fear alchemy element of this program that I also think having some sort of process to deal with your deep fears is also imperative for any kind of change you want to make, because you probably would be able to make the change if you didn't have fears. And the flip of that is you're probably having problems breaking patterns because there's really strong fears associated, right? So being able to deal with those fears, like actually, not just say, oh, just don't be afraid, but like really, like, what's going on with this? Really important to shifting things. So those are both really key elements. The next element component of building really high self-worth is that your self-concept is built by you. And this also my personal take, and I think what can be missing from the conversation a lot is that the concept of who you are deeply incorporates your soul self, period. Okay, so self-concept is basically like if you answer that question of like, who am I? And like, what makes me those things, right? Like that's like it's a very deep thing that like is almost so automatic to us. It's also a very ego mind thing that we don't even realize unless like we take a minute to like step back and like question ourselves and look at it, right? When our self-concept is entirely built on what other people have told us about ourselves, we have not developed the muscle of determining who we are within ourselves. Can you see how that would be a problem for self-worth? How can you ever feel within your own self that you're good enough and trust yourself to know that you're good enough if the entirety of who you've been built on came from other people, right? A huge part of this program and really addressing the self-worth stuff in the first place is releasing our dependency on codependent patterns. I don't think codependency is an enemy. I think it's just one end of a spectrum that a lot of our culture has found it like way leaning on one end, right? And again, it's a dependency. It's like a compulsion and like this like attachment where you can't let go of codependent stuff that becomes a problem. There's like a healthy amount of codependency for sure, right? I just want to be clear about that. So, releasing this need for codependency to be the only strategy for you to determine what's true for yourself or who you are, right? The flip of that is you being able to build your own self-concept, right? And in terms of that soul perspective, I think that that's kind of self-explanatory. Like, it's not just who you are as a human, but like, how is your definition of who you are incorporating the truth about what you know about your essence? The fact that you're source in a human body, like the fact that you are literally divinity incarnated, right? Like bringing that kind of knowing, that 45D perspective into your self-concept is really important if you don't want to stay playing in like the 3D realm of like self-worth, because that is the hamster wheel that we're all on right now that's causing a lot of problems, right? So building your own self-concept. The other components of really high self-worth is is shifting out of the judgment approach into the alignment, what I value and what resonates approach to things. And let me tell you why. The good bad approach, the right wrong approach, the very binary approach is the human thing that we do. It's like the 3D, this kind of thinking only exists in the 3D worlds. And I say that as somebody who's channeled a lot of information from like other dimensions. Like they don't think about stuff with this, like, is it the right wrong thing? Is it good? Like it's just not like that. There's shades of gray in everything. There's a little bit of good and bad, I say in quotations, in literally everything. So for us to just qualify one thing as the right thing or one thing as the wrong thing or one thing as the good thing or the bad thing, like it is like grossly simplifying things that are actually very nuanced and complex. Right? Now, the reason we do that is because, again, as humans, our human mind is always trying to figure out how we can survive. And it needed to put things in categories for the sake of simplifying and aligning itself to what would be survivable, aka the good or right thing, and staying away from the things that felt dangerous or threatening, which is the bad or the wrong things, right? So it's a protection mechanism. It's not serving us. It's not serving our ability to be able to come out of survive mode into thrive mode, especially if you're trying to like develop a lot of emotional and spiritual maturity. We got to let it go. We got to start thinking about things differently. When we start thinking about things in terms of like what aligns to me, which of course requires you actually knowing who you are, which kind of comes into that self-concept being built in and from you, right? Like what aligns to me, what feels good to me, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. That doesn't mean it's the right or the wrong thing. Doesn't mean it's the what feels good to somebody else, but it's just what feels good to me, right? When I can start using that as like a magnet to pull me towards the things that resonate for me, then I can start to like move my way through the world in a way that works for me on like a soul level and more, right? And it takes that charge out, like the pressure out of things, because really thinking about things in terms of good and bad and right and wrong triggers us into a fear mentality, which is scarcity mentality, which is lack mentality. They're all the same thing. Like self-worth does not live in that world. It just doesn't. So if we want to step out of that mentality, we've got to start releasing our compulsion to label things in that way, in that binary scale, and instead start asking ourselves, okay, like where might this fall just on the scale of options of what it can be? And does that feel like something that resonates with me or not? If it doesn't, then it's just not meant for me. Great. And I'm going to move towards the things that do. When you're making decisions about things that you want for yourself, it's not so much pressure that you're going to do the right or the wrong thing. And it's just like, what's the best choice for me right now? What feels good for me right now? It's a whole thing. It's a paradigm shift that can make a really, really big difference. Another element is trusting and relying on yourself to meet your needs directly. Because if you don't, again, it's going to keep you locked in this codependent relationship with things. And that sense of safety and contentment we were talking about before is going to be contingent and attached to external things, which kind of makes you a slave to all this external stuff and disempowers you from being able to create your own experience, right? When you are meeting your needs directly, it is a signal that, I mean, and this is also unconscious too, but like it's a signal to yourself that you deserve for your needs to get met and that you're capable of meeting them. That's a emotional and spiritual maturity thing too, but that you deserve for your needs to get met, that your needs are important. When you ensure your needs get met, that is a signal of them being important. Again, there's a lot of that like core belief stuff that kind of got to gets that has to get shifted a little bit first. And some of that fear stuff you got to work through about that, and some of those you got to challenge some of those mindsets that tell you that you shouldn't do that. Once you do that, you meeting your needs directly is a core fundamental of you having really stable and really deep self-worth. 100%. Again, there's a lot more on this topic I'm really excited to talk about with people in the program. Um, but that's what I'm going to say on that for now. Okay, and the last topic is understanding the importance that joy, pleasure, and frankly, just like the quality of your experience in general, the importance of that and how that impacts the collective. A lot of people listening to this are probably those people that are like, I just want to do good in the world. I want to be of service. Like, I just want to do my part in doing good by people. I want to leave things better than I came. I think a certain element of that is just like our soul nature, right? So when we're getting more connected with our soul, we feel more of that kind of motivation. A lot of core beliefs that are tripping us up about self-worth is that our joy, that our pleasure is somehow at the detriment of other people. Again, this is something we're really going to unravel in the program, but I cannot tell you how far that is from the truth. There's a reason this is at the end of the list and towards the end of the program, because there's some like fundamental work that kind of has to get shifted in order to really see and feel and embody this. But when you are in joy and pleasure energy, you've gone out of, I just need my core needs met. You've gone out of, I'm surviving into, I can expand outside of just surviving into thriving. I can expand to take in more joy. I can expand to take in more things that feel pleasurable and beautiful and enjoyable, right? I can expand into those things because I'm so content and full with my core needs. Now it just gets to be about like what would be good. Like what extra things would be good. This is abundance. That's abundance mentality, by the way. And our ability to feel deserving of the things that we want and not just the things that we need is also a core element of feeling and like really embodying self-worth. Self-worth is not just I like want to be able to technically survive in the world. Self-worth is like I am worthy of all of the things that might come up in my mind or heart about what I want, just for simply being. It's not one thing I have to do to deserve it. I can just be worthy of all of them. All of us are inherently worthy in that same way, right? So your ability to embody joy, your ability to prioritize joy, your ability to create joy in your own self, the ability to understand the importance that things like pleasure play in our self-worth practice and our experience of our own self-worth, and especially in our manifestation practices. And really, what are we trying to manifest if not more abundance and bliss and peace and all these beautiful things that are attracted to high self-worth, right? So it's all very connected. And the last thing that I'll say to kind of close this part out is that ultimately self-worth struggles are a human 3D mind thing. They are scarcity mindset thing. Anything that is not enough or even too much, lack of, restriction of, is all scarcity mindset stuff, all lack mindset. That is like the plague of our human world right now is this mindset. And that's really also being driven and motivated by fear. Fear is only ever a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're making decisions from fear, right, which is from lack, from scarcity, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. What we're afraid of is exactly what happens, just in a different way than than what we were trying to avoid. For example, in a relationship, you're afraid of being rejected for who you authentically are, which really comes from a deep desire to be loved and seen for who you authentically are, but a self-worth issue that you don't think you're worthy, or you fear that you might not be worthy of being loved and accepted for who you really are. So, because you're afraid of getting rejected, because that's such a tender spot that your mind, your subconscious is trying to protect for you, you do all these things out of fear of really being seen for your authentic self because you're so afraid of being rejected. What happens then? You don't show up as your authentic self. You choose people who don't really vibe with you on that level you don't feel comfortable with, and you don't end up getting seen and loved for who you really want anyway. And you reject yourself because you don't show your authentic self. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Taking action from the place of fear is always a self-fulfilling prophecy. That doesn't mean that you don't ever have to have fears again. It just means you got to learn that process of how to work with them, to understand their wisdom, and to be able to create the space for you to make a choice from a different place, for you to make a choice from with a different intention, probably one that's soul-centered, authenticity fueled, right? Instead of making choices from the place of fear. You know what I'm saying? Scarcity fear thinking is a human thing. If we want to step into create like consciously creating these big lives, stepping into these other kinds of experiences that we see for ourselves, we have to start thinking with an abundance mentality. This is a big, bright, shiny word in especially the spiritual industries. But what I talked about before about believing that we are full, that we are whole, that we are content, and there is more than enough for everybody. The universe has the ability to create and bring to us everything that we need when we believe that we can receive it, that it's safe to receive it, and that it's important to us to receive it, then the universe is going to bring us everything that it wants us that we want it to. Period. Right? When we believe that way, the way we interact with the world is very different. Having very high self-worth, like spirit level, soul level self-worth, is very connected to abundant thinking, which is really, really good news because when we address self-worth, we're tapping into abundant thinking and we're tapping into abundant living. You know what I'm saying? Which is why the name of this program is Valuable and Abundant, because you are inherently valuable. You are so important. You are so worthy. You are so valuable. And you are also abundant, like inherently. And tapping into how valuable you are also taps you in to abundance, which I think most people, when they understand it, are really trying to get some more of. So the whole program has a lot more detail than that, of course, but it addresses and helps you build all of those components of your self-worth, not only in a practical way, because of course I'm a Virgo, like let's integrate it, let's make it practical, let's bring it into the 3D. Let's not keep it in this spiritual bypass, mental level, but like really bring it into integration with our bodies and our energy fields and on a somatic level, like all that kind of stuff with some really big mindset, feeling, emotional, spiritual shifts as well. I'm going to come back and tell you more about the details of the program if you are interested, as well as the killer deal that is going on right now. Okay, so valuable and abundant. It is a 5-week group coaching program, 5-week group coaching container that is positioned basically right between the holidays before the end of this year. So the day that it starts is going to be Wednesday, November 15th. The first couple modules are going to be made available then, and our first live call is going to be on Friday, November 17th. The way that this program is built is that it's a 5-week program, and every week you are going to get online course material where there's going to be a module for you to watch, and there's going to be like activities, exercises, custom resources for you to use to start integrating the lesson of that module. Okay. Yes, you're going to have some homework. Then we're going to be doing a group live call on Zoom with me, where I'm going to have some interactive activities like with the group about the content of the module for that week. And we're also going to do live Q&A together. So this is going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions about parts of the content that maybe like were kind of hard to understand or you were having trouble with, or if there's a big resistance point that you're meeting when you're trying to work through and use the tools that are recommended for that week. And all of that is going to be recorded and be made available in case there's like a scheduling conflict with one of the weeks or something, or you just want to go back and listen to the group calls. And those are going to be posted in the online content forum as well. So every week there's going to be a module, custom resources and activities, and a live call together. The other component of this program is I'm going to be doing a WhatsApp messaging groups for you to be able to message questions in between the live calls. And I'm going to be splitting up most likely into like smaller cohorts. And there's going to be like a basically kind of a fun assignment for you guys all to be able to interact with each other and also, again, really integrate some important parts of this together. It's going to be the most lovey-dovey, wonderful place in the whole world, this little WhatsApp group. So we're building community with other people who are really ready to shift their self-worth. They understand how important and how impactful it would be to their lives to just spend these 5 weeks, the few hours of work it's going to take a week between watching the videos and the things to like really start to shift it for the rest of their lives, who are like ready to do that. I cannot wait to meet these people and be connected to them. I'm also going to include recommended resources. If any one of the topics that we talk about, like really get you and you really want to learn more about it, I'm going to recommend some resources and places that kind of go into those things a little bit deeper so that you can continue your education, your transformation in that area of self-worth. The exciting thing, and again, if you're on my email list, then you would have seen this, and I highly recommend you subscribing to my email list because not only do you get access to these wonderful discounts, but you also get a free channeled message at the start of every week. Um, on my email list, everybody got the announcement that I'm taking enrollments for for valuable and abundant. So you can actually like buy your spot in the group now. There are limited spots in the group in general. And on top of that, in those emails, you got access to a special and exclusive link giving you a discount, an early bird discount to enrolling in this group. So from Sunday the 5th to when it was announced until end of day on Tuesday the 7th, November 7th, um, there is going to be a 25% discount on your enrollment in this group program. So please take advantage of that if this is something that feels important, that feels exciting, that feels like, gosh, I've been waiting for something to be like a deep dive on this and like a really like meaningful and like juicy way that has this spiritual approach, because of course it's healing with Brie, you know? Then please go check it out. Um, you will only be able to get this early bird discount link by being on my email list. So if you're already on my email list, check your spam. If my emails have been going to spam, like set me as one of your like VIP people or something like that, because that helps it go actually into your inbox and not go to your junk so that you can continue to see my emails and look for it there. Or in this episode description, there's going to be the link to sign up for my email list, which will automatically trigger you getting the early bird discount link. So check that out if you would like to have access to that. The registration for this group is going to stay open all the way up until the program starts and maybe a little bit afterwards too. But there's only limited spots, and the chance for like big discounts like these is only going to be in like a very, very small window, aka this early bird discount thing. And I really want you to be able to take advantage of that if you want to. So check out my website, healingwithbree.net, for more details about the program to actually be able to enroll. But if you want that early bird discount, use the link that is in the email to actually check out on it. So you can like look at the information, and I'll put this in the email, so you'll probably already see it. The information about the program is on my website, but the link to actually like check out that particular offer is that special link in the email. I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. It was so fun to talk with you about self-worth. I'm probably going to do other iterations of this, but I just really wanted to get this episode out um, because like all the things I said, it's so important. You've heard me talk a little bit about this before in the rest episode and some of the other ones, that when we're in the human and scarcity things, it's all about what we do and what we produce, and like that's how we measure our worth and success. That sets us up to be stressed out, codependent, and unfulfilled. It just doesn't set us up for the kind of living that our soul really wants us to live. So I really hope that you join me in this abundant, valuable, and abundant group program so we can just shift that right back into place. We can be feeling good, you know? Um, since you already have a podcast app open, please like, subscribe, rate the podcast 5 stars. It means so, so much. And I'm so excited to talk to you next week.